Welcome to In the Loupe. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of In the Loupe. My name is Michael Burpo, and I'm the lead UI UX designer at Punchmark. So this will be the sequel episode to our past two with Evelyn and Katie. This time joining us, it's Erin Lashley from the Smithee Group, and joined again by Katie Kinlaw, who is the digital marketing manager at Punchmark. And we're going to be talking about what to do now that you're a pro at developing and posting great content on social. So what do you do with this platform that you work so hard to build? How do you maintain it and start building a community? It's going to be really interesting, so make sure you stick around. This episode is brought to you by Punchmark, the jewelry industry's leading website provider. Join the community of nearly 500 other jewelry stores in choosing Punchmark's easy-to-run and e-commerce enabled website platform by visiting punchmark.com for your free trial demo. This episode is brought to you by The Smithee Group, a digital growth agency that helps leaders and businesses dream bigger and achieve multi-generational integrity. Through insights and intelligence, digital marketing, and advertising solutions, they help businesses expand their business and grow their revenue. The Smithee Group has helped hundreds of businesses surpass their goal and believe that whatever your business, whatever your story, they'll make it matter to your audience. All right, everybody. So I'm joined here by Katie Kinlaw and Erin Lashley from the Smithee Group. Erin, we've had Katie on in past episodes. Erin, could you give me kind of a brief explanation of what you do for the Smithee Group?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Erin Lashley, I'm a brand strategist for the Smithee Group. And what that means is I am responsible for creating strategies to help businesses grow their business. So on the strategy side, that's what I do. Also, that bleeds into copy for businesses. That's organic copy or paid copy, what we're using for ads. Also responsible for creating assets such as graphics, videos, GIFs, all of those things that we use organically and on the paid side. So I do a lot of collaborating with our team on the media, account managers, all of those types of things. And I really enjoy what I do. So I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome. Are you the one that typically is involved with posting those sound bites on Instagram for the Smithee Group?
Yes, that is primarily me.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Those things are great.
So essentially, the one that you see from this episode will be me doing it.
Dude, we should just snap that one, put it in there, and it'll be really meta. It'll be great. So just to recap, everybody, what we have been talking about. So the last two episodes were with Katie and with Evelyn from the Smithee Group. So what we were talking about with that was kind of best practices and actionable kind of ways to start really taking advantage of your social media platforms, whether that's on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever it is that you're doing to promote your brand. And then now we're going to talk about, now that you're actually doing that, how to grow your community, how to kind of implement a strong base, some KPIs that you should be looking at. So this is kind of like the next step. Once you start getting your feet wet with actually posting, we're going to get into that a little bit more. And we got two experts joining us. And I'm definitely pretty amateur when it comes to this. So you guys are going to be explaining it right to me. So that's always good. So maybe we can start with just defining, why is it important to have a strong base, Erin?
Yeah, absolutely. So what it means to have a strong base as you're building your brand and as you're building your business, one thing that you want to do is you want to build it with people that want to build it with you. So you want to build a community of people that you can kind of do life with. Even if you think about community in life, these are your friends, you have dinner with them. They come over your house, they help you raise your kids, all of that type of stuff. You're essentially building that in a digital space, in a digital world. So your community consists of people that really believe in what you're doing and want to be a part of building that brand with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to kind of like cap that off too and kind of provide my own spin on it too, I also think that it's very important that this really ties into like the basic foundational piece of who you are as a brand as a whole, right? Like, what are your specific brand values? What are your philosophies? I think if you have that down pat, what's important to you, how you want to communicate with, your target audience. So it's going to be that much easier to determine what makes you unique, what makes someone, the perfect type of target audience that wants to interact with you. And I think from there, you can kind of tailor that along with your like business priorities, ultimately who your core target audience is going to be.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that.
I think also when you think about like a brand, a lot of the times people think of brands as just the logo or just the storefront or the signage or these things that are purely one aspect of it. And I can only say this from like a design point of view, because that's what I'm familiar with. It's kind of like these cornerstones is like, what is your brand's mission statement or stance? Mm-hmm. What is your brand's kind of voice? What is your brand's visual kind of styling? And these things, they all sort of build the proverbial store that is this business, I guess, kind of, if that's like a extended metaphor. But maybe we can talk about activating, or like what kind of the difference between having kind of an okay base or an okay set of followers and like having really activated followers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think leaning into that a little bit more, the difference between active followers and passive followers is really in the word itself. People that are active are so invested in your brand, so invested in your story and what you're building, that they are actively a part of that. And passive followers are interested, but they're not interested enough to really engage with your brand. And that shows up in different ways, which I know we'll get into a little bit more as far as how people engage with your brand online organically. But you're really looking to build a community that's made up and consists of active followers that are so invested, so in love with the brand and believe in it that they want to now do something about it and help you build it.
Yeah, it's super fascinating, like having a base that's willing to kind of vouch for you and be these, strong supporters and people who are engaged and ready to go. Those people, it's not just about becoming, it seems like, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, having recurring customers, but there's also kind of like a je ne sais quoi of folks that are just supporting you even outside of just purchases. But maybe let's get into what are some signs of a strong base? Like what should they be looking at to kind of diagnose, do we have a strong base? Should we be putting more focus on that? How can they start to decide that?
Yeah. Well, one way when it comes to organic content that you can measure the success rate, so to speak, of how well your content is doing or how engaged your community is. Practically, there is a website called flanks.com, which is PHLANX.com. And on that website, they have something called an Instagram engagement calculator. This is very interesting, and we've used this to assess the current health of certain clients that we've worked with out the gate. But what it does is that it measures how many active users do you have in your community. And what they do is they take the number of followers you have and kind of divide that by the average number of likes and comments you're getting on a post. And therefore, they give you a percentage of engagement rate. So typically, if you have an audience between 1,000 to 5,000 followers, typically the engagement rate is anywhere between 5% and 8% on a really healthy account. As you grow in followers, so this is interesting too, people that have like 1 million plus followers, the average engagement rate on accounts that large is more like 1%, 1.5%, which is also very interesting. So that's a real practical way to just kind of assess how many active users are actually in my community.
Yeah. And I think that that's really interesting too. You talk about organic social content, but kind of look at it from another kind of point of view too, right? So obviously we want to talk about engagement, likes, comments, saves, like all of the main pieces of metrics that we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth. Engagement rate, I feel like, when it comes to marketing, everything is a percentage, right? Yeah. Engagement rate is definitely a big piece of that. But also from another perspective, talking about like conversion rate and click-through rate as well, even for like organic content, because not every single post is going to be centered solely around like engagement with the community. But I think, looking at it from a lens of like a promotional standpoint, are you trying to promote a particular event? Are you trying to promote a particular promotion on your site too? Like looking at conversion rate, what's the actual action, that you want the user to take? Do you have a form on the site that you want them to fill out? Do you have a particular event you want them to sign up for? I think looking at it from that perspective too, considering, all of the other percentages that you can count, conversion rate, measuring that, as well as click-through rate. So how many times someone saw your post, how many times they actually clicked on that particular link, I think gives a good indication from a percentage standpoint to how active your users are as well.
Man, it's really cool, like knowing that. I think a lot of people, they suspect or they think that I've got 500 followers or 700 followers on my store's account. I should be getting, maybe half of that, 350 likes or 350 engagements. And it's like, no, in the end, you only need one good one to convert on that piece, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I have a different perspective on it.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that sometimes people get caught up too much in the number of followers they have, when, in my opinion, you really should be paying attention to how many people of those followers can I get to engage with me more than the number of people following me. Because if your engagement percentage is high, man, like that's more valuable than having a really large following, truthfully, in this day and age, because those are the people that are going to rock with you in the long run as you build your brand.
Yeah. And I think that that's also true of like organic, like SEO as well too, right? When we're measuring the success of the amount of traffic that we're getting. Yes, it's also true for like engagement rate for, the social side of things, but from an organic standpoint, looking at the quality of traffic, because sometimes I've worked with clients and their traffic has gone down, but their conversion rate has gone up. It's important, again, to really focus on the quality of that traffic and making sure that you're bringing in as targeted as, an audience as you can.
Yeah, I agree.
Very interesting, though. So, okay, we talk a lot, just going off script for a second, we talk a lot about stores that are kind of just getting started. So this episode is all about how to get your social media numbers to reach new heights. So that's the topic. But what about folks that are already doing pretty good? So we talk a lot about 500 to 1,000 followers and how to get from that to a couple. What about people that already are at like 2,000 followers for their store? Is it still kind of thinking about the end goal, or is there something different that they should be doing? Or how would you kind of advise them on that?
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. When you're first starting out, you are almost like doing all of the foundational things you know to do in order to build an audience. And then once you finally hit that number, let's say you're at 0, and then you finally hit 2,000, that in your head was like, once we get to 2,000, then we're a valuable retailer in that industry space on Instagram, and we won't worry about it too much. But they forget that you have to continue those same foundational tactics and practices in order to continue to grow your audience and use the platforms that you're using in order to keep your platform healthy, so that you're always granted more eyes and views, and almost just being able to get your brand and the expression of who you are to as many people as possible by continuing those best practices. And sometimes I think some clients we work with in particular at the Smithee Group forget that is also just as important as the other things we do for them.
Yeah. They call it the basics for a reason. It's like, it's the ground level. Do that.
Don't forget the basics. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's very interesting because we have the whole gamut for clients. We've got folks that they have an Instagram account, they have 0 posts on it. And again, we talk about Instagram a ton. So this could be true about Facebook, could be true about Twitter, or whatever it is that you drive revenue with. But some folks have 0, some folks have very middling, some folks we have a couple clients that have like 130 or 200,000 followers, and they're just like, it's a major revenue driving tool. But in the end, it's what is going to drive engagement, what is going to drive conversion. Maybe let's break down engagements. So not engagements, but engagement. Let's talk about, we all know there's likes, comments, shares, saves. What else do we got? Can you kind of give me, what should they be looking at? Which ones should they kind of be ignoring? Is there anything in between?
Yeah, I would say that, in my opinion, you shouldn't necessarily ignore any of them. All of them are really important.
Okay.
And all of them feed into the amount of engagement that you want to see as far as growth on your account. So one thing that I do think is really important that people don't typically pay attention to is saves. Because what happens is, if you think about the journey of a consumer on organic platforms, social platforms, is when they go to save something, they're indicating that thing, whether it's a ring or a product or maybe just something inspirational that you posted, is important to their value system or something that they want in the future. And so when you pay attention to, hey, I just posted this and organically it got 50 saves and typically I'm seeing 1 or 2, that's a key indicator that this type of content or this type of product is really important to the majority of my audience. So I should be leaning into that space a bit more. And that's something that retailers don't typically think of when they think of engagement. They're paying attention to likes and comments, but saves are really important, as well as shares. If they are sharing it, then that means it was important enough to them to want other people to know about it. So that again is a key indicator. Put yourselves in the shoes of the people consuming your content, how they're responding to it, and saves and shares are two ways that are really good indicators that that is the type of content your audience wants to engage more with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, kind of an interesting sidebar to that too, is I always find it interesting to see like the types of posts that get the best engagement, because you have a variety of like different ways that people are like highlighting just like a standard product photo or highlighting, a model that's like showcasing and doing like a stylized shoot. And then you have, I think probably some of my favorites that I've seen perform the best are when retailers will post like two individual pieces of jewelry and they're like, do you like this or do you like this? Like one is like white gold and one is like rose gold, and they'll do like a poll. And I see engagement on that like skyrocket.
Through the roof.
Yeah. And it's like an invitation to have conversation, which is a reflection of engagement and community. Communities have conversations. So if you can get people talking, that's great. I totally love that, Katie.
Yeah. And I think that it's so important too, to also like keep a note of the specific things that make a post like actually be engaged with. Like, are you using a specific type of imagery? Are you using a specific call to action? Like, what are the main common themes between like the posts that get interacted with the most? And, take notes of that. And I think you can continue to optimize on that. And as you continue to grow your account, kind of pull based off of, what works well for your target audience, and kind of build from there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple of like little key hacks I wanted to get into when it comes to organic content and things that retailers can pay attention to. One thing that I like to explain to our clients is don't forget the importance of the direct message, the DM, because what happens is if you can interact more with people in their direct message, it indicates to the platform, be it Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever platform you're using, that person likes talking to you more than they like being in their feed and scrolling. So then that it trumps the algorithm, because then it gets your content front foremost at the top the next time that user that you've been DMing with goes to the platform. So being in your DMs is a really good way to keep your content front and center. And one easy way to do that is in stories. So typically when somebody's flipping through their stories, they're like, okay, that was great. A little reaction here, a little reaction there. And typically what we do on story reactions is we just like it to indicate that we acknowledge, thank you for that reaction. But one easy way to get, kind of slide into their DMs, for lack of better terms, is to reply with a sentence and saying, oh, I'm so glad you love it. Which one did you like more, the white gold or the rose gold? Or just start conversation, because those little things, again, will help you get your engagement up organically. And it doesn't cost anything, but it helps. I'm telling you, it helps because we've tested it. And that's definitely something, a hack almost, that we encourage our clients to do.
I mean, people like people, and people like brands that act like people. Because if they can find out that there's a person on the other end, instead of some like cold, heartless, freaking employee sitting on the other end that doesn't care, but it's like actually a real person, tangible person at the other end, and you like their story post, and then they reply with, oh man, we love this piece also. What, is this something you'd have as an everyday wear? Or is this kind of like a fancy, occasion kind of piece? And then they reply back, and it's like, yeah, some algorithm didn't just put that DM in my, in my messages. It's an actual person that I'm having a conversation for. And it just drives that human connection to that brand, as opposed to just like the transactional connection, which I feel like kind of is what a lot of people end up doing with their brands, which is,
Yeah. And just to even lean into that further, when you talk about human connection and making yourself feel like a human to people, that goes a long way. Quick story. I was following somebody on Instagram, and somehow I replied to some story or something that she did. And I was like, I love this or whatever. And she replies back, but she replies with a voice memo. I don't know if you guys have ever used that feature on Instagram DMs, but she replies with a voice memo. I don't know who she is, but she replies with a voice memo, and she's like, hey, Erin, oh my gosh, I used to live in Phoenix too. I love what you're doing. You're podcasting, you're working for the Smithee Group, you're doing all these different things. I wish I could meet you sometime, but I'd love to hear more about what you're doing. And just hearing her voice, I was like, no way, I feel like I know you. And for me personally, I'm never going to unfollow her. I don't know what she, I haven't unfollowed her to this day. I don't know what she's doing at this moment, but that created like this human connection that we don't get to experience when we're scrolling and liking and commenting. But to hear your voice goes a long way. And so I would highly encourage, that's another, what we would call inbound engagement hack, a hack where you are going the extra mile, so to speak, to engage with the people that are following you and the people that you're following. So they need to just hear your voice sometimes, and that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Metaphorically and actually. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. You know what? I haven't really utilized that function all that often, but I feel like in my own personal life, when I react to any interaction that I have on Instagram, it's predominantly reactions too, right? As you're going through your story, because they're accessible to you, right? I feel like, even with my friends, like Mike, I'll see, a really cool painting or something that he's been working on. I'll be like, heart. And then he'll like back, and it just makes you feel like warm and fuzzy. But now, Mike, I expect for you to DM me.
I am voice memoing back to you 900% for sure.
I expect that.
Yes.
I have you
Let her feel
unfollowing
like she's right there with you,
That's awesome. Guys, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back to you in just 30 seconds after this ad. Shopping for jewelry can be expensive, and buying the perfect piece on a monthly budget can be a big ask. And that's why we're excited to introduce this episode's sponsor, Sezzle. Sezzle is an alternative payment option that allows shoppers to buy now and pay later by splitting their purchase into 4 interest-free installments. Merchants are paid upfront in full, and orders can ship right away. Adding Sezzle as a checkout option is proven to increase sales, conversions, basket sizes, and purchase frequency for merchants. Consumers love the flexibility and pay no interest or added fees. And they integrate seamlessly with Punchmark websites, which is pretty cool. If you'd like to join over 16,000 merchants taking advantage of the benefits Sezzle has to offer, and exclusively for In the Loop listeners, go to get.sezzle.com/loop. That's LOUPE. And enjoy your first month free as an exclusive In the Loop offer. Thanks, and back to the show. So, we're back.
So can I just say, little transition, but also related to Sezzle. So I was talking to a client about Sezzle this morning, like hyping it up just because we've seen like such success with our clients that have utilized it too. Because like, I'm sure everyone has done this. You're scrolling through, let's say you're looking at getting a new wardrobe for the next season. We're going into fall. I'm already wearing a sweater. I'm trying to like breathe it into existence, right? Just minus the fact that it's freezing in my condo. Anyway, but so you're scrolling through and you're trying to get all of the fun new wardrobe pieces for the next season, right? And you're adding it to your cart. And then you see that little, message across that's like, spend $300 or 4 easy payments of like $50 or whatever the math breaks down into, which one are you going to do? I'm just saying it's pretty neat.
That's awesome to hear. It's so cool. And we just got a message back from Jillian in the chat. She said, I made a Sezzle sale today. So that's really cool. So maybe we'll cut that out. Maybe we'll leave that in the pod. I don't know. Let's keep on moving through. So let's get into the second half of the show. We're kind of closing this thing up. Let's get into actionable techniques, like things that these people should be doing after they finish listening to this. What should they be going to do for their business? Erin, can we go for some tips, or how can they improve their actual business?
Yeah. So one thing that we recommend our clients do, especially in the retail space, you're spending a lot of time on the floor. There's other things to do in the store. And unless you have a dedicated person to social media, sometimes it's hard. And usually if you have a dedicated person, they're not just doing social media, they're doing other things in the store. So one thing we recommend in those types of scenarios is that you spend 15 minutes a day working on each of these engagement hacks. So what does that look like from day to day? Let's say it's Monday through Friday, and Monday for 15 minutes, I'm just going to go through the people that I'm following. This is inbound. These are the people that you're following and they're following you in your community. So that means I'm going to my feed and I'm going to start liking and commenting on the posts that are in my community. That indicates to Instagram that you're in good health, that you're part of your community, that you're not just expecting people to like and comment on your stuff, but you're willing to like and comment on other people's posts as well. So that's one thing you could do on Monday. On Tuesday, you could focus on Instagram stories and reactions and sending voice memos and spending more time in DMs. On Wednesday, you can focus on doing outbound engagement. So one hack that I definitely want to mention to you guys, because it's super practical. One thing that people don't think about is when you are using the search feature on Instagram, you can find people that are in your community by searching the city that you're in. And when you search the city that you're in, Instagram will pull up two different things. It'll pull up the top posts that are in your city, and then it'll pull up the most recent. If you spend time going to the most recent posts and you start liking and commenting on those posts, those are people that have just posted something in your city in the last minute or 5 minutes. So they're paying attention to who's commenting. And if you leave something very thoughtful, exactly. They're like, who is this person? Or who is this brand that like interested in my Dalmatian puppy that I just got? And so they're going to be more apt to go to your profile, look at your website, look at what you're into. One, because they experience that human connection. You know what I mean? So that's one hack we didn't talk about earlier, but I definitely want to mention it as we're talking about tips you can do every day. And then you just rotate through those for 15 minutes a day, because sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. You're like, I don't know what to do every day, but just split it up and do 15 minutes a day, focus on one or the other. And the other thing to keep in mind is growing and being successful on Instagram. It's not just about having great content, but it's about keeping your overall usability on the platform healthy. So Instagram is picking up on the fact if you're just posting things, but you're not engaging with people that are following you and in your following. They're also picking up on the fact if you're not using stories at all. They're also picking up on the fact if you're not talking to people in DMs. So when you're utilizing all of the aspects of the platform, or even getting into Reels or IGTV and just kind of rotate through those, Instagram is going to reward you with more engagement and more eyes and attention on your content, because they see, oh, this account is in good health and good standing. So those are tips for every day. And then when we're moving into every month, one thing that people don't think about and that we encourage our clients to do is go through your follower base and make sure that you're not following somebody that's inactive, because that hurts your algorithm on Instagram when you're a part of a community that's actually not using the platform at all. So it'd be good to go in and kind of clean up. If you notice their last post was from last year in the springtime or something, it might be good to go ahead and unfollow them and just kind of clean up your database every month. So those are some tips I would definitely give to clients.
I heard somewhere, I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk. He's like some business guy or whatever. He one time talked about, give your $1 a day. And so he would say, go in and do your 10 cents 10 times. So what does 10 cents mean? You're going to go on, see a post, and you're going to write a longer than, I think it's like 5 words, longer than 5 words comment. So something like, wow, I really love that. It was super inspiring. I love the art. That way it doesn't look like it's just a bot, so that it doesn't seem like what you're doing is what you're doing. You go through, engage, because in the end, think about it. It's a little bit narcissistic to think that people are going to engage with your content and fall in love with your content and be super users for your brand if you're not doing the same in reverse. Don't you think that it's kind of fair is fair? You got to go put the good vibes out and they're going to come back and follow you, I think. So that's my 2 cents. 10 cents.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I also want to mention too, the reason why they're suggesting that you comment with at least 5 words or more is because of the bot aspect. So they created a new algorithm where they're not even considering a comment that's less than 3 words to be a comment because of bots. So that's why it's really good to think of something super thoughtful and intentional, more conversational with your comments, because it'll be more impactful and meaningful to the person receiving the comment. And then it'll also just look like an actual comment on the platform you're using.
Yeah. And it's also kind of, and again, sorry, Katie, keep jumping in, but it's also kind of, our clients are always talking about how they are a pillar of their community. They are a shining beacon of what their city and their community and their town stands for. And I think part of what that is in this age, 2020, is sometimes lifting up these voices and, showing your love for them. And that's why I think Erin's tip for going by posts in your area and then going by recent, being just that brand that sends positive comments, positive energy out there is it's on brand for a lot of what our stores are trying to be, which is, a center point for, love and romance and all those things that jewelry stores or any brand is trying to be. So put that out there.
Yeah. And I think it's important too, I know we talked about this in the last episode, is that it's also important to make sure that you don't have to be the only person that's managing your social media account too. You know what I mean? Bring in people to help support you. I know it sounds like a lot, but if you look at breaking it down, I think that Erin did such a great job in breaking it down in terms of like what to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but also with the aspect of like, you don't have to do it all. Like bring in an intern, bring in someone that's familiar with your brand, that works with the store, that can help you kind of break these things up and delegate. And I think it goes, much smoother as well. So.
Yeah, Katie, that's such a good point. We actually recommended that exact thing to one of our clients in particular, where they had one person, they started off doing all of the social media, and it was just too hard for him to do on his own. So then he focused on, I'm just going to capture great content because he's a great photographer, really good at creative things. And so that's all he focuses on. And then we brought in somebody else and they were focused on just doing Instagram stories and interacting there. And then there was another girl that kind of came in and she's doing more of the social engagement. So that's an example of a team of 3 people on a staff that kind of all work together to help support and bring engagement on that company's platform, which is great. So I totally agree with that. It's great advice.
Awesome. So really quickly, as we're going, I think a lot of people are always saying, well, what about, can I just buy this engagement or can I just pay the money to boost this thing? Let's really quickly, Katie, can you talk about paying for ads? How can you, is it unhealthy to pay for ads or how can you do it in like the right way? What do you think?
Yeah. So, when we kind of go through the next few episodes, I believe farther down in the schedule, we're going to have more in-depth conversations around like paid social ads and, what that looks like, but super high level. A lot of people I think are very familiar with boosted posts, and that's a form of an ad, but it's not actually like a standard Facebook ad. You also have to consider, like standard, like reach ads, retargeting ads, product ads. There's lots of different pieces that kind of tie into that. Let's start with like a boosted post. So a boosted post is just going to look like a normal Facebook post, but predominantly the ability to, push that out to people. It's nice because it allows you to target either one way and people who are actually going to see that boosted post. You can actually target by people that already interact with your brand and friends of people that already interact with your brand. Or you can target people specifically based on their interests. So let's say you are posting about, let's say a watch sale that you have going on. You can target people that are specifically interested in watches or specifically interested in luxury goods. So you have different like targeting capabilities either way. Again, either by choosing people that are already part of your community, which is always great, or by targeting people that are relatively interested in kind of the main themes of whatever you're trying to boost.
So just kind of being a little bit more, more like a scalpel instead of like a net. So I think that there's like a lot of value if you, see that social is going to be a part of your business strategy, paying for some ads, it can just kind of keep you on the fast track. It's not going to do all of the work. It's not going to, lift you right to the top. But I think that it does sort of grease the wheels a little bit. So I think that that's something we're going to get into a little bit more in a couple of other episodes. So let's drive this home. Let's wrap this whole thing up. What can people take from this? Why is what we're talking about so important? Why should people listen and actually take to what we said to heart?
Yeah, I definitely would say that the reason why this is important, whether you're doing paid ads or organic content, is because they go hand in hand. One thing that we see across the board with our clients is when they spend money on paid advertising, it leads people to want to research their brand more to see if what they're seeing is really what it is. It's part of their purchase journey. So they then go to the organic content to verify if the brand that they think they've interacted with is actually true and lives up to par. And so organic basically complements everything that you do on paid and vice versa. And that's why it's really important to show engagement and to boost your numbers organically, because it's going to help you as you're running paid advertising anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree. I think all marketing boils down to the sales funnel, the marketing funnel, right? Like the top of the funnel where people don't really know you and getting them down to people that have interacted with your brand, are familiar with who you are. Those are the type of people that are much more likely going to convert for you, whether that's make a purchase, come in store, they're engaged and they're interacted, right? I think it's important in terms of like digital marketing as a whole. When we're talking about social, organic social is predominantly what we talk talked about today, how to really boost that engagement. And paid is, paid social, either, through Facebook or Instagram, whether you're targeting specific products to people through different like carousel ads, whether you're retargeting users that have already engaged with your prior content. There's tons of different things that work in support of each other. Again, tying into that customer journey, and when we talk about working together, we want to talk about like SEO organic, when we talk about, paid ads in Google too, it's the same thing. It's how can you have an integrated approach, have the right type of, messaging, branding, everything to work in support of the end goal, which again is hopefully to either purchase on your website or to come in store as well.
Man, and it just ties right into it. It's people like people and people like brands that act like people. So, building credibility, building that trust and that kind of friendship. It's almost like you can be friends with a brand, especially if they're a local brand. I think it kind of just drives the whole point home. And why should they come shop with you as opposed to either the person down the street or some big box brand? So kind of comes into that. Keep that in mind as you go. I can't thank you guys enough, Erin and Katie. That was great. And anything else before we cut?
I think we're good.
Yeah,
Perfect.
That's awesome.
So thanks, everybody. All right, everybody, that's the end of the show. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And a big thank you to our guests, Erin and Katie. The next live show will be on September 10th, and that will be covering what to focus on to drive online sales. And it'll be between myself and Cody from the Smithee Group. We're going to dive into a whole bunch of stuff related to your website. And we have a live show the week before every episode airs, live on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts and everywhere else. You can join in, ask questions, and join the spontaneity of it. Special thanks to Sezzle for sponsoring this week's episode. And you can find more information by going to get.sezzle.com/Loupe. That's LOUPE, and enjoy the first month off for free. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you next time. Bye.